Hi, my name is Diowanni, and I'm an advocate for the Pasadena for Rent Control campaign.
What's your story? Describe why rent control is important to you. Tell us what it was like on the day that you got the notice.
Friday, July the 1st, I was preparing for work. I had a 9:30 meeting. It was a few minutes before 9 o'clock, and I got a text from my neighbor, and she said, "We got our eviction notices." So, yeah, that was my look. It was rumored that this would happen, but we just didn't know when. So, to actually have it happen, I had to take a step back. So when I read it and I saw 60 days, I think my heart started pounding. It was hard to go to work after that. I work in the social services arena. I work in mental health where we provide services for people with mental health challenges. I'm going to help people, but I need help myself. What happens when the helper needs help? After I got that letter and mulled over it for a few days, the fear of some of the sheriff's deputies coming to put me out, the same ones that I was working with side by side when COVID hit, that was scary. So getting that letter again was traumatic. I started talking to tenants in my building. We didn't know that we had rights. We called the city. We just started gathering information. At that time, I was not familiar with the tenants unit. I didn't know that there was a campaign going on. I was just uninformed, only to find out my neighbors were also uninformed. So now I'm on a campaign of being a big advocate to let my neighbors know everything that I learned and to keep my friends updated on my story because they know that I'm being impacted by this, and I'm asking them and encouraging them to share with anyone they know living in Pasadena to pass rent control. This has actually brought our building closer together. Some of us got pretty close during the pandemic. Um, I was laid off. I was furloughed first, then I was laid off. So I found myself going to food pantries, and whenever I would get stuff, I would share with the neighbors. We would share staples that we couldn't find in the store, like toiletries, um, meat, eggs. Eggs were very scarce. It made our community tighter, so I would hate to lose that sense of community that I've developed with my fellow tenants, which is pretty diverse. I'm the only African American in my building. And I remember reading during this period that the population that's going to be most impacted by displacements due to evictions is African American women. I'm like, wow, I hit the stats. So I really appreciate the sense of community. We've been looking out for each other since we heard about the evictions. Now we're left with this sense of mistrust. Like, I don't trust my landlord because of the way they handled it. To just wake up and go outside and see that, it was pretty traumatic. You have 60 days to get out, and I'm looking around my one bedroom apartment. It's small, but I have a lot of stuff, and I need to shift and move this all while maintaining my job. Like, it was pretty hard to manage that. I appreciate the support that we're able to offer each other. Um, that helps that we're not going through it alone. I've learned about us collectively, we're very resilient, and the support has really helped us to get through it. I've been in Pasadena for 4 years. I moved here from Mississippi about 9 years ago, and I'm proud of my state. However, there are some moments that I'm not proud of, things that were done in history. Unfortunately, I'm starting to feel, going through this process, that this is starting to feel like my grandparents' Mississippi. Um, Pasadena is, and it shouldn't feel that way, but it kind of does with the way that this has been handled. Rent control is important to me again because I believe that some of the best bouquets are different flowers. What would the world look like if we just had red roses? We didn't have the calla lilies, we didn't have the other flowers, the daisies, none of that, but we just had red roses. We would be missing a lot. So I would hate for that to happen to Pasadena, where we get rid of the brown and black roses, brown and black flowers, because we're a part of what makes that, I think, my America.
You gave a very powerful message. Describe a couple of stories of people you know that have been evicted or moved out of Pasadena because they can't afford to live here anymore.
So there are two families that moved out of our building after we got the eviction notices. Like they got out quick. Unfortunately, one was not compensated for whatever reason. And I have a friend who's a social worker who had to move to Azusa, and she works at APU, but lived in Pasadena but could no longer afford the rent. So that was devastating. She's trying to figure out how to come back to Pasadena, but unfortunately hasn't been able to. Again, this is someone else who's gone to school, got higher education, has been working in the field of social services. However, she cannot afford to live in the city that she loves.
Why do you think rent control is important to the Black and brown community?
I think rent control is important to those communities because it increases the opportunity for equity and for us to be able to afford housing in Pasadena in particular.
Why is rent control important to the church community, and what do you think they should do to help?
I think the church community has an opportunity to imitate Jesus in terms of making sure people have what they need, supporting each other. There are a lot of scriptures that talk about communities stepping in and helping people that needed help. Well, let me go back. I don't have a problem with people making a profit, but the greed that I've seen in this process and the way we were rudely, told that we will be evicted and some of the harassment that came along with it is pretty sinful. And I don't think that that's magnified or amplified enough. But it was pretty traumatic to get that letter and then to get some of the phone calls or some of the text messages, when are you leaving? It's detrimental if the church community is silent. I think this is a great opportunity for the church community to show up and represent the Lamb. Right now, we're so polarized in the U.S., everything is about which side you're voting on, but some things, it doesn't have a voting side. It's, I'm your friend, regardless of how you vote. I go to work every day. I get a notice saying get out in 60 days. How do you show up for me if you're my sister in Christ, regardless of if you're wearing red or blue? So I just want to see the church community not be silent on this issue and show up with the lamb of, with the love, expressing love like Jesus would do, or the communities did in biblical times. There's an opportunity for property owners that are within the church community to offer affordable housing units within their properties, and just be fair in the rent increase. First of all, consider voting to pass rent control in Pasadena so we can keep Pasadena diversified so it doesn't just look one way, but brown people and black people, other people of color, have the opportunity to live in Pasadena and be able to afford it.
Do you feel more empowered as a group of tenants rather than just one person dealing with
Oh,
it?
absolutely, Ira. There is strength in numbers. Not only has that made me feel empowered, but to come across information like the protections for COVID-19 with through LA County that says we're covered through December 31st. We None of us knew that. So at first we were like, man, we got to get out. So I'm immediately starting. I'm on my lunch break. It's bedtime, but I'm looking for places to live. So when I came across that by reaching out to the city, they didn't even give us the right information. The information they gave us was outdated in terms of the allocations that we will receive for moving. And when I did the calculations after getting the most recent flyer, it was like a $217 difference. So again, the way things have been done, the way things have been mismanaged, and just the deceitfulness, that's what's really annoying and irritating. So Ira, going through this experience, I would strongly encourage people to find out what's going on in your community, because I was totally uninformed. Make sure you register to vote. Make sure you get to the polls to get this passed and educate others. The biggest thing is just being informed, because when life hits you like this and you're not informed, it could be devastating. get out and vote. Let's make it happen.